8 people locked themselves inside a sealed glass world in the Arizona desert. Their own ocean, their own rainforest, enough food to grow, enough water to drink. They agreed not to open the door for 2 full years. For a while, it worked. Then the air itself began to disappear. Not through a hole, not through a crack, no leak anyone could find. The oxygen was simply vanishing, and no one inside knew where it went. By the end, they were gasping for breath in a paradise they built with their own hands. This is Biosphere 2, the most expensive attempt in history to build a second Earth. And the reason it fell apart is not the reason you were told. In 1991, in the desert north of Tucson, Arizona, they finished building it. 3.1 acres of sealed glass and white steel, completely airtight. 7 million cubic feet of a world cut off from ours on purpose. It was the idea of a man named John Allen, not a scientist by training. He came out of a desert commune and an experimental theater troupe. His group believed humans could engineer their own living planet from scratch, and a Texas oil billionaire named Ed Bass agreed to pay for it. The bill came to nearly $200 million. The goal was breathtaking. Prove humans could seal themselves away from Earth and survive. Inside, they packed an entire planet in miniature. A rainforest, with real vines climbing toward the glass. A working ocean, with a living coral reef and its own waves. A savanna, a mangrove swamp, a fog desert, and a farm they had to live off completely. No shipments, no deliveries, ever. Around 3,000 species of plants and animals came in with them. Here is the thing nobody says out loud about this. Outside that glass, the real Earth does all of this. For free. It makes your air, cleans your water, feeds you, and sends no invoice. You have never once had to think about where your next breath comes from. These 8 people were about to find out, the hard way. 4 men, 4 women, doctors, engineers, botanists. On September 26, 1991, they stepped inside and sealed the door. A cheering crowd watched from the desert outside. The world was told a new chapter of human history had begun. For the first weeks, it felt like the future had arrived. They farmed at dawn. They logged data. They watched their little ocean breathe. Everything was measured. Everything was under control. Or so it looked. Because deep in the soil, something had already begun to go wrong. The oxygen when they sealed the door was normal, 21%. Slowly, quietly, week after week, it started to fall. At first, the numbers were so small, no one worried. But your body notices long before a chart does. They grew tired. Ordinary tasks left them winded. Climbing one flight of stairs felt like climbing a mountain. At night, they stopped breathing in their sleep, then jolted awake, gasping. The oxygen had dropped to 14%. That is the air near the top of a 13,000-foot peak. They were slowly suffocating inside their own paradise. And here was the horror. No one could find where the air was going. But this was only the surface. The air had not escaped at all. It never left the building. Microbes in the rich farm soil were breathing it in, faster than the plants gave it back. They exhaled carbon dioxide, which should have set off every alarm. But the carbon dioxide vanished too. That was the second mystery. The answer was hiding in the walls. The fresh concrete of the structure was drinking the carbon dioxide out of the air. The oxygen was eaten by the soil and locked into the walls as solid stone. The building itself was quietly swallowing their air. 16 months in January of 1993, they gave up. They pumped pure oxygen in from the outside world. The one rule of the experiment, never break the seal, was broken. The dream of a self-contained world had already failed, and the mission wasn't half over. The air was only the first thing to turn against them. From almost the beginning, they were hungry, constantly, gnawingly hungry. The crops did not grow the way the plans had promised. The crew doctor put everyone on a strict, low-calorie diet. His name was Roy Walford, and he believed near starvation could extend life, so they ate less and less and worked harder and harder. The men lost close to a fifth of their body weight. They dreamed about food. They talked about food. They hoarded scraps. Meanwhile, the little planet they had built was tearing itself apart. Every insect that pollinated their crops went extinct inside the glass. Without pollinators, plant after plant simply stopped reproducing. But other creatures did not die. A few of them thrived, horribly. Cockroaches multiplied across every surface, and a species they called crazy ants swarmed the enclosure by the millions. One aggressive vine, morning glory, choked the farm and the rainforest alike. In the ocean, the coral began to die as the water turned acidic. The perfect balance they had designed was gone in under a year. But even this, the dying ocean, the swarming ants, was not the worst part. Because the first thing to truly die inside Biosphere 2 was not a plant or an animal. It was the 8 people themselves, as a group. They had entered as one team, chasing one dream. Starving, exhausted, unable to breathe, they turned on each other. The 8 split into 2 camps of 4, and the 2 camps stopped speaking. Completely. They passed each other in narrow corridors and said nothing. They worked the same land, ate at the same table, and pretended the others did not exist. Old fights about money and control leaked in from the outside. One biospherian, Jane Pointer, sliced off the tip of her finger in a machine. She was let out for surgery, then sealed back in. When she returned, she carried a duffel bag. The others suspected it was full of food. In a sealed world, one bag of supplies felt like a betrayal. Trust, in the paradise, was the scarcest resource of all. Their bodies were alive. Their little society was already dead. 2 years is a long time to share a cage with people you refuse to look at. On September 26, 1993, the airlock finally opened. All 8 walked out alive, thin, pale, and barely speaking to one another. Officially, it was a triumph. Everyone survived, but everyone who was inside knew what had actually broken. And here is where the story stops being about biology at all. The experiment was supposed to prove humans could escape the world's chaos. Instead, it recreated that chaos perfectly. The money that built the dream now wanted control of it. Ed Bass had spent a fortune, and the science was in chaos. In April of 1994, he moved to seize the project by force. He sent in a new management team, backed by federal marshals. The man he put in financial control was a little-known businessman named Steve Bannon. Yes, that's Steve Bannon, years before the world would know his name. The utopia had been taken over in a boardroom coup, but 2 of the original Biospherians would not let it end quietly. One night, they drove back out to the sealed dome. A second crew was inside now, under the new management. The 2 former crew walked up to the airlocks in the dark, and they threw them open, breaking the seal on purpose. Sabotage, a warning, a funeral for the dream, all at once. The grand experiment to escape human nature had ended in exactly that. Human nature. Money, power, betrayal, and a door thrown open in the night. When it was over, the world reached for the easy lesson. Humans played God, and nature laughed. You can't fake a planet. That reading is comfortable. It is also a way of missing the point. Look again at how the air disappeared. It didn't leak out. There was no villain, no crack, no hole. It was eaten by microbes and swallowed into the walls. Chemistry no one could see. 8 brilliant people and $200 million could not keep 3 acres of air breathable. And outside that glass, a machine you never think about does it for 8 billion of us. No one runs it. No one bills you. You have simply always assumed it would hold. Every breath you have ever taken was handed to you by a system you cannot see, and did not build. Biosphere 2 is still standing in the Arizona desert, empty and quiet. They got to walk out of theirs when the air ran thin. There is one detail worth sitting with. They called it Biosphere 2 because Biosphere 1 already had a name. Biosphere 1 is the one you are breathing right now. It has no airlock. It has no outside. There is nowhere to pump the air in from. The 8 of them had a way out. Inside the only dome that matters, we don't. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button for more stories like this. Goodbye and good luck.